So, Rebecca of Sense of Direction, here we are. And today we've got, I think, a very significant recording to do because it's about the value of learning conversations such as we have regularly. And we're going to have a learning conversation about it. So we're going to be using the same medium as we're reflecting upon as a means of evidentially recording professional development, which is what we're doing. We're both professional people. We call ourselves that. Many people out there, like myself and yourself and so on, are members of professional bodies and associated professional bodies, work to their codes of practice. They all want people to record and reflect on, usually in the painful written stroke typed up way. Well, I'd like to explore a different way that we've been working for a long time, that is evidential and is definitely about recording learning, literally recording learning, but in a different medium than is typical, which tends to be too documented. So that's already saying too much, but that's our context. Well, are you with that?
I am, and I hope that we are actually going to be able to prove or, give the benefits of saying that this is really helpful because, like you said, we do this many, many times.
Hope so.
So yeah, I think so. But my first question to you, I know that you record a lot of your learning. You have these learning logs and things,
Yeah.
and some people resist the writing down. I'm not a big writer downer in some respects. I am
Yeah.
in certain occasions, but not always. So
Mhm.
what do you feel that you get by writing these down and your learning logs?
Okay. Well, straight away, you've given me an interesting curveball. I thought, hey, we were talking about this, and no, it's good though because that's exactly what we're talking about. Because working interactively, we get that. Where did that come from? Oh, that's maybe think about something different. So thank you for that. That really makes that point strongly. What do I get from writing up my learning? Less than I do like this.
Yeah.
I've been writing up my learning since February of 1987. It's got 1.5 million words. I'm showing off now. It's handwritten. It's in 7 lever arch files over there. One of the reasons why I've really been enthusiastic about what we're doing here, that I do with others, is I think it's stronger than that. Because when I write something down, it's me and only me. It's my self-reflections. I haven't got a different me saying, but you didn't think of this. And are you sure about that? Could you go into that bit more deeply? That only comes from me. In our conversations, and you've just done it, they're interactive. I can't anticipate what's going to come. There's value in somebody else than me coming up with their perspective, their challenges, their support for things that I can't find within myself. So yeah, I get a lot of value from that, and it's a great means to show off and to differentiate practice because we're all supposed to do it. But I think this works better as a means of recording evidentially development.
Mm. And like you say, I think I always find our conversation sparks something else off. We'll often start on one thing and then go off on a tangent or whatever. So I think for me, the bonus of having the conversation is you've got somebody else's experience coming. You've almost got like three. This is where I find it quite interesting. Is we've almost got three perspectives here. So you've got mine, yours, and ours
Yep,
together,
that's
and I
good.
think that makes a difference as well, doesn't it? In terms of I could sit down and ask myself questions,
Mhm.
which is helpful because it'll get me thinking in a different way. But if it's me who's come up with the question, then again, my thinking's already limited because it's my question and my answers.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think having a conversation and hearing it out loud sometimes makes it different. I know we were just talking before, weren't we, around even if we're reading something out loud, then you
Mhm.
get a different take on that as well.
Yeah, because a lot of what people call development is nothing more than fleeting thoughts, which are lost 8 seconds later. What was I just thinking then? It's gone. How often do we say that? Same as happens with learning. Unless we actually capture it, that's the issue, capturing learning. And that's the big problem for people. All professional people have limitless opportunity to learn because the workplace is changing all the time. There's new challenges thrown at us. Learning's not a problem. And by the way, I'm not talking about sitting on a chair being told things by people that you don't need to know. That's awful. Training's just talk. And I was thinking about that a lot this week. Training's just talk. That's all it is. And that's not to diminish its value. It's talk that should lead to application and enhance performance, blah, blah, blah. But most learning is through actual workplace or domestic circumstance. It's real world learning, and that's individual, it's unique, it's contextual, and that's why we're talking together as two people. If we were talking a group of 300, or let's be more realistic, 15, we would not get the same value from this because we'd have to politely sit out the majority of whatever time allowed to it. We can totally dominate our time together because it's only us. So for me, it works at many levels. It's an opportunity to explore interactively and to focus on ourselves, not politely wait for our turn to get into a conversation that other people aren't interested in.
And I think there's
Challenging
value.
thought.
So I did some, so on my way over to my cousin at the week, an audio file on my way across, which made my journey far more enjoyable and interesting. So listening to that, but then actually then sharing some of that with my cousin over the weekend was another way of me reflecting on what I'd listened to and then being able to summarize or synthesize or explain some of those concepts to someone else. I guess that's also what we're doing, isn't it? Is often we're taking in learning from elsewhere and sharing it with somebody else, because that's, they say people learn better is actually to teach it. Do one, see one, do one, teach one.
Find them, all that stuff. Yeah.
So that's, I think that's the added value in this as well, potentially.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, so what we say, it's a very natural way. I'll tell you what, we get through a lot more words spoken than we do written down. Because if there was a transcript of these conversations, and we've just been talking about the value of that before we came on air, so to speak, I'm starting to get quite attracted towards transcriptions. Now I see them working better. So what I'm trying to say is if I wrote down everything that we're saying verbally, it would be a vast number of words. I couldn't do it. So we get, so by the spoken word for the purpose of, let's go back to the where I come from fundamentally on this, to capture learning and professional development through the spoken word, you get through more than if you were writing it down. Writing it down, partly because it's a painful thing to do for people, where it's typed up or written, would summarize things to a point where the value is diminished significantly. Well, I had this conversation with Rebecca. It was all very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'll do it again. Well, that's all very well, but that's very little. About another 8,000 words that were spoken during this 20 minutes.
I wonder, you got me thinking now. So at the end of maybe a workshop or course or training course, whatever, perhaps there would be value in spending the last half hour or however long encouraging people to sit down in pairs or threes to discuss what they've learned from that workshop, course, whatever, and helping people pull out different sort of key points, because everybody will take in something different as well from it. So actually, perhaps that's a really good way of evaluating the learning and sort of capturing some of that learning. And then you could, but you've also got then potentially, if people work in teams, some accountability. If you encourage people to discuss that learning, and then you ask each person to set an action or an intention, how are they going to use that? How will that impact their work? You've almost got some built-in accountability with that as well.
I don't want to be clever here, but I've been doing that for 30 years. Only because I was reading things from Peter Honey, Mike Pedler, and others in my earliest 1980s period of, I don't know how to do this job. I think it's great, it's learning stuff, but I don't know anything about it. So I read everything I could. And that led me into doing those sorts of things. What I was discovering was that people got no appetite for it. I want to go home. You know, I thought we'd finished. What's this about? Let's do it quickly. Because I mean, you know, and I think there's great value in what you're talking about. I really genuinely do. I just find this whole fundamental, yeah, I don't mind going to something and saying words, but just don't ask me to write down what I've learned, because that somehow feels unnecessary and painful. But it might not be. I've tended to use what you're talking about in a more dynamic, continuous way. I give people learning points, and I say, when you get an aha moment, write it down. I mean, write it down. And I do the same. I say, I've just had an aha moment, and I write it down myself. And I make a point of showing people I'm writing it down, because I'm a learner too. Because some people don't like the idea of being called learners. I am. You all are. So let's get over that for starters. So I think there's a lot of value in what you're talking about, but I think it's fundamentally what I'm talking about in this thing. If you said to people, talk to each other for 10 minutes, they do it. If you said to people, write it down or whatever, that would somehow be a problem. And that's really what I'm at here. This is why these learning conversations are so helpful, because they're interactive, like we're having now, but they cover more ground, and it's easier.
It is, and almost more enjoyable. I think
Yes, I
that,
think it is. There's no great satisfaction at the time of writing things down. Believe me, I've done 1.5 million words of it.
and I think you almost get more from having that. So I would want to use it because it's given me some ideas now.
Mm.
I wouldn't call it the evaluation. I would build it in as part of it. So, you don't say we're finishing at this time and then we're doing the conversation, building it in, isn't it, into that. And this is how we wind up the days. We're going to sort of take some key points from this. We're going to have that discussion with each other
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah.
It's a wider issue. Maybe it's one we should return to, this whole business of how do you encourage the transfer of learning from a formal event, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot been said about that. Another means by which I'm doing it at the moment with my principal client, I'm having conversations both in groups of 3, 6 of them, and individually 18 people, one-to-one, and I'm making notes, direct quotes. I've got 45,000 words of that so far. I'm only halfway through the program. It's 120 pages of only quotes. And then I'm giving them that back and saying, this is what you said. And they say, wow, did I say that? Yes, you did. So it's difficult to balance the conversation and recording parts of it, but it's all part of capturing the learning. I'm doing it for them. I'm taking the notes they're not making for themselves and feeding back their words. So I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, here are the words that you couldn't write down for yourself, but I did it for you. But it is about reinforcing. Training's all talk. Put people in a group of 3, they're great talk. I had a great conversation last week around conflict management. It really was strong. And not the usual stuff. It was very strong. Gave them things to do and they did them. It was fantastic. But I think all the time, what are you going to do as a result of this? And one thing that prompts that is giving them back their own words.
Yeah, that is good. And I think, but for me, that's what I've learned is sometimes for me, writing down is just a way that I process it. I wouldn't necessarily come back to it. So I think sometimes people wonder if it's, why am I putting in the effort to write stuff down if I'm never going to come back to it? But for me, that's just part of the process. It helped me process things. I can pull out key points that I can come back to and take notes from it.
Absolutely right. When I prance around very less often than I used to with a CPD angle within my own CIPD, blah, 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 abbreviations of the time. But with Chartered Institute of Personal Development stuff, I used to be quite a person to go to say, hey, Andrew does it, you could do it like this. Well, Andrew still does it 30 years on from when I was doing that sort of stuff. But you're right. The first question I used to get asked when I used to plonk my then no more than 2 or 3, no 7 learning log lever arches is, do you look back over it? I said, nope. They said, what's the point then? I said, might not be any. But I can't be bothered to look back over it. The value comes from, as you say, processing, reinforcing, clarifying, understanding in that moment, and then hopefully storing it. But do I have the appetite to look back over the 37 years worth of the 14th of July? No, I don't. And I think recording professional development like this, do we go back and watch these in the same way? I don't. It's about the value of in the moment learning, reinforcing, going more deeply.
So I think for me, the key point is, well, there's a couple of key points is, yes, there's definitely value in doing these. So that's good. I'm happy that I'm still finding value in doing these.
But just discover there's no value.
Yeah, that would have been really upsetting. So there is value, but also it's finding finding a way that works for you as the individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think is key, but also thinking about, right, because I often will reflect on the conversation later, or I find that things that we've discussed comes up in conversation that I'm able to think, oh, I remember Andrew saying that, or I sort of lodges in your memory bank slightly differently, I think, as well, when you're having a conversation, because there's more sort of context around it, and that's what helps to store it better, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I know we're nearing the end. We try to keep it around 15 minutes for this. It's never ever enough. You're absolutely right. I think that too. And I guess another element of professional development for me is employers have got a lot more to do than they do currently. Employers, so far as people have them, you've got half of one, I've got none. I haven't had for over 32 years now. But where employers could do a lot more is raising the expectation of people to contribute to, if not to direct their own learning. and to reward people for doing so. I don't see anything like enough of that happening. It should be part of everyone's job, in my view, to have like a performance contract where you actually do this sort of stuff by, as you say, the means that suits you best.